Hello again, and it's time for another project. Today we're going to do mostly router work on this cockerel rooster, and the idea is to route out all the white sections, leaving that thin black framework around all the different pieces, and then we'll paint that black or dark stain it, and then we'll come in with multicoloured resin and fill in each section. So it's going to be a little bit of a project towards the end for filling in wise. As always for me, we've printed it out. To enlarge my templates, I use a site called Rasterbaiter, and you can go on that on your mobile phone. I do everything and then send it to the phone, and then from the phone to the printer, prints it off with little margins, and you can sellotape it all together, and you can go up to 1000 A4 size sheets, so as big as you like. So we've got it on there. This is 12mm plywood today. I was going to do it on pine originally, but I just haven't got a piece that's not got full of holes. I tend to use recycle wood a lot, and unfortunately it comes with screw holes and fittings and brackets and stuff that's been it's been used on a wardrobe or a table or bench or whatever. So plywood today, and it routes out really nice. This is hardwood plywood from my local DIY store. So we stuck the template down. Now, I have seen people route straight over the top of this once it's been glued down, obviously. I tried it once on paper. It was just a mess and it didn't work for me. So I used carbon paper or graphite paper. Nice fresh piece. Definitely not something like this. And let's just pop it underneath there. Draw around it with a biro. Pencil. Move along. Draw around. That was probably the hardest bit, was drawing around this. Good thing about that, we can use that template over again, and I would like to cut that out on a scroll saw eventually. So for now, we'll leave that to one side. Apologise for next door's dog barking. And there's our template all nicely done, ready to route out. And there's the dogs barking on the other side. Keep calm, Shane, keep calm. So we're going to route out all these sections. Now just pay you to get a pencil, pen or marker. Basically scribble out the bits that you want to remove, because you will go away, come back, maybe start routing out these lines areas. Well, that's your project done. So just take your time, put crosses on, whatever you want, just to mark it all so you know which bits you want to remove. Once they've all been removed, we will cut it out on a scroll saw eventually. You could leave it on there if you wanted to. That's a nice size. Basically put a frame around it. But for me personally, nice router project. That's the scroll saw and a router combined. So we will cut it out eventually. But for now, as always for me, little CNC bits. These come in different degrees. 15s, 20s, 10s, they're 20s. The one I've got in my adapter collet, which you will need for those, that is a 15 degree. Now the adapter collet is basically just a little tube like that with a couple of slits in. That's a 1/4 inch, 6.35mm, and you pop in your CNC bit, 3.175mm. That now has a 1/4 inch shaft on, and that will fit your router no problem. If you use the Dremel with a router attachment, they will fit a Dremel, no problem. So we will use these to do all the lines. Remember, you route up to the lines, not on the line itself. That will alter that distance. If you route on that line there and that one there, you're going to narrow that section there. So up to the line, up to the line, up to the line, and so on around the full piece. Once we've done that, we will pop on an end milling bit. These bits look small for a decent sized project, but I guarantee you once you get one of these on, I'll go for that one for now. That's going to be a little bit small. We can go a little bit bigger than that. They fit the same adapter collet, and we will use those to do all the clear out section. And once you get in the zone and start doing it, you're surprised how quick you actually take it out. These are all Amazon and eBay. Looking at this project, we have no tight corners, so we can probably go up to a slightly bigger piece like so for our clear out. But we won't be needing that for a while yet, So we'll pop the CNC bit into our adapter collet, set it to about 3mm. I made a piece of wood here with the 3mm and a 4, I do believe, and 3mm roughly is the same depth or thickness as your CNC bit, as you can see from that. That doesn't look a lot, but that is plenty deep enough to route out and to inlay with resin. That's only rough, remember. It could be 4 by the time we've done. And could we do a lot of waste wood? You can do a couple of samples on the side. Pick one that you like, mark it off. Should you go away, come back, you've got your depth gauge basically there. And you can purchase depth gauges online or digital fancy one. But for me, bit of wood, pop that in the router, sit the router on top of there, and we can set it to that depth. Okay, we'll get that in the router, route it all out, do the end milling bits, clear it all out, cut it out, paint it, bit of varnish, and then we'll fill it all in with multicoloured resin. Right, so we've made it all the way around with that little 15-degree CNC bit you can see from there. I think that's about ready finished with now, but you do get a lot of projects from your little bit itself. And as you can see from that, without knocking the stand, we made it all the way around. And if you look close up, we can just make out the pencil lines or the carbon lines. So remember, route up to the lines, never on the line. Most cases, some cases you might just have to do on the line. So we're going to do all the clear out now. With rubbing that with your palms, you tend to rub the pencil off, so if you want to take a couple of minutes just to mark off again the little bits that you want to remove, that will save you. If you go away, come back, you might just start routing out this middle line here. Well, that's the end of your project. So always mark off the bits that you want to remove. So we've took the CNC bit out of our little adapter collet there. Now I'm going to start off with quite a small one of the end milling bits. That is quite small, only because there's a lot of pointed feathers on this, so we want to try and get into those little gaps here. And if it's a little bit slow, there is bigger ones out there, but just think about the size of your bits when you're putting those on. Okay, we've already got that one in the adapter now. The older ones come with these plastics on. I've ordered some new ones and they don't have the plastic on anymore, but I can guarantee it's the same bit. I will put some links into the description at the end. Right, let's pop that in. We'll set it to the same depth. You notice there, if I can just find one, I removed certain bits. There's one there and a little bit down there. That just allows us to put our router on there, set it to that depth, and basically start clearing this one out. So we made it all the way round with that little end milling bit. I did the full project with that, and there is bigger pieces out there and there's different bits to fit. Just find the one that suits you. Once I get in the zone, I'm just clearing this out, steady away, and I'm totally thinking about other things, and I just find it nice and relaxing. So I'm certainly in no rush to race on and get these projects done. Now the next stage for me, should I say, we're going to cut it out first. Normally I would come in and just give this a general tidy up with a piece on the end of the Dremel over there. I'll show you that when we come to clean up. Doesn't really need it, but it just allows you to get into these tighter areas here and get all those little bits out. So for cutting out, we're going to go for the spiral blade for me, of course. Now spiral blades, the teeth spiral the full length of the blade, and they will cut in any direction. We could drill a pilot hole here, feed that through, and you could literally cut all that out without basically turning that wood. That's a good thing about spirals, they will cut in all directions, but they are not for everybody. Your other two blades are your standard pin blade. You'll find a pin on both ends and they just hook onto your saw. Remember, all your blades, plain, straight, spirals, smooth on the way down, rough on the way up. That way you know your blade's in the right way. Should your blade be in the wrong way, it will cut, but all your sawdust will come to the top and your wood will be tempted to get pulled off the table all the time, if that makes sense. So you'll soon know if your blade's in the wrong way. And you could use that pin blade on here, nothing too technical. And the other one, what the professional boys use, is a pinless blade. Yeah, for really, really detailed work. And obviously we've got none of that on here, but you can still use that. So if you are going to go out and purchase a scroll saw, I do recommend you take one that takes pinless blades. Unfortunately, my old drapper in the corner there, I have to use these adapter clamps. And you have to put that on there, Allen key, tighten it up, top and bottom. Once you've fed it through, put it on, screw it up, and then if you're doing a lot of holes you're cutting out, that can be a bit of a nightmare sometimes, but you get used to what you've got. So pinless blade saw if you can find one. Right, let's pop this Pegas number 5 spiral blade on the saw. We'll cut this out and then we'll come back for a general tidy up, and then we'll look into the staining, painting and resin side of things. Right, so we've got our spiral blade set up on the saw. For me personally, I like to drill a pilot hole just outside the area we're going to cut, feed the blade through, and then just literally start cutting it out as we go around. You might be tempted to come in across here, just cut right across here, and then start cutting it out, and that's fine, and I've done that on smaller projects. But as you're turning your wood or moving your wood about, these two sections start flopping about, and as you're turning, they can catch on the table underneath. So we try and keep it together as much as we can. This is quite a big piece, and I want to start over here somewhere, but it's too wide to fit on my saw. So we're going to start there, and we'll make it work somehow. So for me personally, a little pilot hole, feed it through. We've got our tension there. Just get it right. A little bit more on that. There we go. Right, let's start cutting this one out. Right, you can see from that, even I had to cut it across. That was just too big for my saw, even with a spiral blade. So we did it in 2 halves. So there's the bottom section, and obviously the top section comes off just as easy. So there's our bird all cut out nicely. The only thing you will find with those spiral blades, you get what they call fuzzies on the back. If I can get near enough, just some there, look, and that adjusts the way the blade cuts. But a couple of minutes with a bit of sandpaper like that, all the way around the full piece, and you'll be good to go. So now just want to tidy this up. We're going to remove all these pencil lines off the top. Remember, with your plywood, too much sanding and you will remove that top section, that top veneer or layer or whatever it's called. So it won't matter if you're going to paint it or stain it, but if you're just going to put a bit of oil on that to finish, you will get a yellow tinge with the next layer of plywood comes through. So we'll pop him on there. We'll clean it out with these engraving bits. Just remember what I was doing then. These are just eBay specials. You get a pack of 30 for next to nothing, and they're ideal for cleaning out and engraving with, obviously. I'll just pop mine on the end of my flexi cable, just cheap eBay special. On that attaches the end of my Dremel. We've got a nice flat bottom. We'll just go in, give that a nice tidy round. I've already checked to make sure it fits into those little sections here. So nice tidy up with that. Bit of sanding down. Might have a quick skim over, and then we'll be looking to the painting and staining side of things. Right, so we went over it all with the Dremel. Remember, that's just my way of doing things. As long as your top section is nice and straight or nice and clean, we're not going to see any of this back section, remember, because we are going to inlay it all with multicoloured resin. So Dremel bit, then we went over it all with a mild sander, and then a bit of sanding down at the front there. So we got rid of all our pencil lines, and everything's nice and clear. And I like to just round off these edges slightly, and we've also done it with the inner sections. And if we turn it over, there's no more fuzzies, they've all gone as well. And it takes a matter of seconds to do on something like this. Obviously, if you had cut all these out separately on a scroll saw, and you'd have to sand every one of these down at the back. But we might do that on another. I'm going to keep that template just in case it pops up again in the future. Now, originally I was going to paint this black. I've got my painter's black paint, the painter's touch paints, and I also have a black spray here that we could have sprayed it all. But in the end, I'm going to go for a stain. I've only ever used a dark teak and a light teak there, and we're just going to cover the full piece. No good just doing the top section. When we put our resin in, if we don't come up high enough with the resin, we will see the white walls on the side, and we don't want that. So I basically just cover the full piece, not forgetting these side sections as well. And we've had a quick look round, and we've got no issues with voids. There's a little bit of darkness in there, but that will cover over with a stain. And so far, everything else looks fine. So we'll pop this stain on quickly, let it dry, and we're heading towards putting the resin in. Right, we're going to literally just throw this stain on, give it a good shake round. It will spread well. It looks a bit scary, but don't be afraid of it. Just get it all in, let it soak in nicely. This will dry up a bit lighter. Get a brush and literally just get inside all those grooves there, every bit you can. Just cover the full piece. No messing about. Don't forget those side sections. Right, when we come back, this will all be nicely dry, and we'll spray a bit of varnish on. So there's our little project, all nicely stained over with that dark teak stain. Remember, we've done all the side walls and all the side walls of the routed out areas. When your resin goes in, we're not going to go right to the top, just slightly underneath, and when resin cures it will shrink down slightly, and that just allows you to feel and know that it's been routed out and it's just not one big flush piece. Your sides are plywood, never go as good as, so you might want to paint those. Personally, I just like that rustic look, and I'm quite happy with that. And when we get a bit of varnish on there, yes, you know that varnish is coming, it will just darken this down. One, give it a nice shine as well, and two, hopefully it'll just seal this plywood a little bit, just so there's not so many bubbles in with the resin. It's minor, but it's just enough to say we've covered it. So varnish today, just paint factory gloss varnish, whatever's in the shop of the day. I've got no preference. Because of the resin and the plywood, this is an indoor piece. You can put your resins outside, but after a while with the UV lights and stuff, and sunlight should I say, your colours will fade in time. So plywood and resin, definitely indoor pieces. So we'll just spray this 3 or 4 times. It just darkens it down nicely. So I'll take it outside, and we'll also get all those side walls done at the same time. Okay, so we sprayed on a bit of varnish on there, look, 3 or 4 coats, and for me, just enough to give it that little bit of shine. And hopefully we've sealed this wood. We won't have a lot of issues with plywood, with bubble wise, as long as we keep on top of it. That's quite a big project, so that's the best we're going to see for fitting it all in. Remember, with your resins, you want proper gloves on, a proper resin mask, and plenty of ventilation. Resin is a chemical after all, and if you get it on your skin, breathe it in too much, you might have serious troubles. Personally myself, I've never had any bother, but that's just me being silly and not wearing the proper equipment, so I'll have only myself to blame. Right, the resin itself, Vista one, 2-part resin obviously. You get A, your resin, and you get B, your hardener. This is a mix by volume, so whatever amount of A, we want exactly the same amount of B, and you basically just mix the two together, and that's it. Some resins you will mix by weight, so little digital scales. This is a 1-to-1 mix, so 1 part A, 1 part B. You are done and finished. Some resins are 2-to-1, so you will have twice as much as A to less part of B, 3-to-1, and so on. Some resins are deep pour, some resins are craft pours, so do a little bit of research, but anything like this, these kind of projects, that's no problem. I use these little plastic beakers. You get a pack of 100 for next to nothing, and they're ideal because they do have little grooves on. Unfortunately, these have got a little bit thin, so you will hear that crunching as I'm mixing. They used to be a lot firmer than that. Don't know, maybe they're cutting back with the old plastic. But I'll mark up 4 grooves for B, and obviously 4 grooves for A. And then I'll transfer B into A. They do say put A, B into C, a third container. Personally myself, I've just put B into A, and I've never had any issues. So we will mix a bit of resin up off camera. And for coloration, you can get powders, inks, dyes. I've known people put all sorts in resin to mix the colours. We've got some nice acrylic paints here. We've got plenty of colours, and we are more or less going to use most of those. And we just drop a bit in with our mix, give a good mix round, and start transferring it into our project. Transferring wise, I use these plastic knife, forks and spoons. They're ideal. They've got a big groove down the back there. And when you do your mixing, you can scoop it out and just feed it into each section as we go along. You can also get these plastic pipettes, cut the end off a bit. It is possible to suck up that resin and put it in that way if you wanted to. That didn't work for me, more trouble than it's worth. And obviously, believe it or not, a syringe will do. You can suck the resin up and put that in the same way, that way. There again, too much time and effort. And obviously once it's done, you're going to have to throw away the syringe and the plastics. So, plastic beakers, get our resin mixed up, and then we'll come with our first colour, start filling this in, and as we go along, 2 or 3 colours, we will come over with a lighter. Don't be afraid of your lighters, or the good old blowtorch there. That's a beast. And literally skim over the top of the resin, keep it moving odd times, and you'll see all those little bubbles just disappearing. Once it's completely filled in, we'll pop it to one side and come back in 24 hours. Right, let's start filling our resins up, A and B, and then we can start filling this one in. Right, we've mixed in our first batch of resin. I do apologise for the crinkly noise. These plastic containers have got really thin. So there's our nice mix. So I've done to do a small batches at a time. So we've mixed a bit, transferred some there. That'll be for our next colour. Instead of mixing half as much again, and then it starts going off a bit too quick, or you start panicking. So there's our first bit of resin there. We're going to go with a blue, just a random colour. First one we've picked. You don't need a lot. They do say 10% of whatever amount's in there, 10% of that. But I just tend to put in what I feel, excuse me, from there, and just give that a nice mix round. Once you've done a couple of projects, you tend to eyeball it and you know what you're looking for. Remember, we've got the nice dark background, so if your resin's maybe not as thick, solid colour wise, the darkness of that background will darken it down a bit, hopefully. And you can mix them like that. I'd like to go for a little bit more in there. So same again. There we go. That should be more than plenty for that one. And that's our first colour out of the way. And once we've done this first one, we'll speed things up. And hopefully when we go back down into the shed, I'm just trying to watch it through my camera there. That looks a totally different colour to what it is. It's a nice lovely little blue, is this. So we can put a bit in, look, remember your little scoop at the end of the spoon, like so. And just feed it in like that. Or when you get brave, you can pour it straight from the container itself. Now if you're quick enough, it will slowly find its own way, but get a nice little cocktail stick and just help it on its way, like so. Nice slow process. Remember, you can do 2 or 3 colours, put it to one side and always come back on another day. It's not something that has to be done all in the one day. Right, I'm going to put a little bit more colour in this and then we can continue to fill this up. Right, that's all filled in nicely. We had one issue, if I can just turn it round to show you, and that is just the plywood. Apologise for the quality of the filming. I've got the sunlight coming through, I've shut the blinds, it's not quite worked out. But just on this section here, the actual green was leaking out the side, and that is because your plywood is made of, well, 7 layers on this one. And I always mention about the little voids and the little fillings. And it's been leaking out, but we've got a bit of tape in there, a bit of painter's tape. We've wedged it in. If you can see that, we've stuck it in there. So we'll leave it like that, and hopefully that will all be sorted by tomorrow. But the rest is all nicely filled in. That took some doing, is that. But like I said with your resins, you can do so many one day. I've actually all done this in one go. And colour wise, I've mixed a few blues, had a bit of white, orange, add a bit of something else, what you've got left over from the one before, and just see what kind of colours you end up with. Right, we'll put this to one side for a good 24 hours. I'll go and find a decent cover all your projects up, any flies, and I've had a few around here today with the door being open. They will land on this, I don't know why, and dust and hairs and everything else that you will come across. Right, pop it to one side. Remember, your lighters, as we've done each section, we've gone across and literally skim like that. That certainly helps with all those bubbles. Right, we'll come back in 24 hours and we'll see what we've got. Right, that's it. This little project is finished. Now it's roughly about 15 to 20 hours later. Personally, I would leave this for another 3 or 4 days just to make sure it's nice and solid. Resin manufacturers and some resin groups I'm in they do recommend 30 days to fully cure. That seems a long time to fully cure for me, but I am not a resin manufacturer. But for me personally, less than 20 hours later, everything is nice and solid. Every colour is set. We've had no issues whatsoever as such. If I want to be really picky, when I look this morning, if I can get it in without, just get that one colour there. Look, you see those little speckles? They're actually little air bubbles. And I think there was a green one over here. I'm really being over the top. But the rest are fine. And this colour here, maybe we should have got a little bit more in there. But the day was drawing on. And I must have spent a while, as you can imagine, filling all this in. But just that one piece there, look. Because normally you would put it to one side and go back 5 minutes later and just skim over it again. I got sidetracked and had to go off to do other things. So, not to worry, it certainly doesn't affect the overall project itself. So, that's it. So, it's a rooster, cockerel, fancy bird. It measures in at 16 inches across by 21 inches high. We routed it out on 12mm plywood. For the routing, remember our little CNC bits, they work fine, no problems whatsoever. Don't forget your little adapter collet. And then we came in with our end milling bits, just to take all the clear out. And then for me personally, the Pegas number 5 spiral blade, that's just a blade of choice to cut it out with. And then we stained it all with the dark teak wood stain. And then just to seal it all, did it need it? I don't know. I just like a nicer shine on my project. We just came in with some varnish just to seal it all off with. And get it all on this table. And then Vista 1 resin. That's my favourite at this moment in time. But I've used 3 or 4 different types. And they all basically do the same thing. And to get a nice, good, solid colour like that, acrylic paints. There is dyes, inks, powders that you can get, obviously. And you'll find what works for you. And that's it. We are done. Everything worked fine. We've had our issues, if I may say. Remember that leaking one there? I can't even show you really. It sealed fine in there. You can just see that green inside. And we can get in there and scrape that out, should we need be. And that is just your plywood, remember. Because it's on different layers, you'll get one void. And as I was filling it, if I remember rightly, this colour was leaking into there, and that colour was leaking into there. So a quick wipe out, get that colour in as quick as you can, and that stops it. So there must have been a bad vein, we'll call it, running the full length of that. And that's just your nature of plywood. There's nothing we can do about it. But it didn't catch us out. Just keep calm, and we rectified any issues we had. And that's it. We are finished. So Rooster, cockerel, routed out on 12mm plywood, inlaid with resin, mixed with acrylic paints. Thank you very much for watching.